My name is Allison Carter. I was born in a quiet little town in Oregon, the kind of place where everyone knows your name, and the grocery store cashier still bags your eggs with care. My parents, Emily and Frank, were high school sweethearts, and they raised me with simple values. Be kind, work hard, stay humble. I was the kind of kid who found joy in books, sketch pads, quiet walks, and the sound of rain against the window. People often said I was too quiet, too soft-spoken, too safe. I never saw it as a flaw. I liked the life I lived. I liked predictability. I liked calm. But I was also lonely. In school, I was always the one people liked but never invited. In college, I was a roommate who stayed in on weekends while others went out drinking or clubbing. Still, I believed that one day someone would see me, really see me, and love me for who I was. That belief seemed to come true when I met Chase. He was everything I wasn't. Charming, loud, adventurous, the center of every room he walked into. I met him in a college literature class. It's ironic, really. He barely read the assigned novels, while I lived in the pages. Yet somehow, during a group project, we connected. He said I had a calming energy, something he needed in his chaotic life. I believed him. I believed every compliment, every kiss on the forehead, every late-night call where he said I made him feel grounded. He moved into my apartment just a year after we met. At first, I thought I was living in a dream. He would cook for us, dance with me in the kitchen, write my name in the steam of the bathroom mirror. But slowly, things began to shift. He started coming home later. Parties became more frequent. He grew restless with our routine. One night, I made him his favorite dinner, spaghetti carbonara, and lit candles like we used to. He walked in, glanced at the table, and sighed. Ali, can we not do this tonight? This whole cozy homebody thing. It's getting old. I froze, holding the ladle midair. What do you mean? I mean, he ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my eyes. You never want to go out. You never want to try anything new. It's like you're content living in a bubble. And I need more. That conversation was the first crack. 2 weeks later, it shattered. He came home drunk, well past midnight. I was curled up on the couch with a book, waiting, worried. He stumbled in and collapsed into the armchair. You know what, Allison? I think we should take a break. My heart dropped. A break? Yeah. You're too boring. There. I said it. You never want to travel. You don't even like clubs or music festivals. I feel like I'm drowning in stillness with you. I sat there, numb, listening to the man I loved dismantle our life with a few careless sentences. You're not the girl I want anymore. He moved out the next day, took his guitar, his camera, his favorite leather jacket, left behind silence, hurt, and the smell of his cologne on the pillow I cried into for weeks. I didn't tell my parents. Not at first. I didn't want to see the pity in their eyes. I kept going to work at the library, putting books back on shelves, organizing author nights, pretending like my world hadn't imploded. But inside, I was unraveling. One rainy afternoon, my best friend from high school, Julia, dropped by unannounced. You look like a ghost, she said, wrapping me in a hug. Come on, we're going out. I shook my head. I can't. I don't want to. You don't have a choice. Chase doesn't get to break you and leave you here to rot. Reluctantly, I agreed. We ended up at a small open MIC night in town. Julia signed me up behind my back. When they called my name, I nearly walked out, but something inside me snapped. Maybe it was grief, maybe fury. Maybe it was a desperation to feel anything other than abandoned. I stepped onto that stage, heart thudding in my chest. I read a poem I'd written in college, a raw, aching piece about losing someone who was still alive. My voice trembled, but I made it through. When I looked up, the room was silent. And then, applause. That night changed something in me. People came up to me afterward. Strangers, telling me how my words moved them, how they felt the same kind of heartbreak, how I should keep writing. For the first time in months, I felt seen. Julia wouldn't let it go. She signed me up for more readings. I started writing again. Poems, short stories, personal essays. I posted some online. Slowly, they gained traction. Comments rolled in. People sharing their pain, their stories, thanking me. Within a year, I had a modest following on social media. A small publisher reached out after one of my poems went viral. They wanted to publish a collection. I cried when I held the first copy in my hands. It was real. I was real. Not boring. Not invisible. I was rising. But then came the night that almost broke me again. I was scheduled to speak at a small literary event in Seattle. Nothing huge, but big enough for me to feel proud. I wore a blue dress my mother picked out and rehearsed my speech 100 times. Julia came with me, holding my hand through the nerves. Halfway through the evening, as I mingled near the refreshments table, I saw him. Chase. He hadn't changed much. Still tall, still smug. But there was something faded in his eyes. He was with a woman who looked like she walked out of a fashion ad. He spotted me and froze. Our eyes locked. A flicker of recognition. Then disbelief. He walked over slowly, hesitant. Allison. I forced a smile. Hi, Chase. I didn't know you were. I mean, you're here. You're a guest. I looked him dead in the eyes. I'm one of the featured authors. He blinked. His mouth opened, then closed. Wow. I didn't know you wrote or spoke in public. You never really asked. Silence stretched between us. Listen, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I saw that poem online. The one about leaving someone behind. It was powerful. Thanks. He looked down, then back at me. You look amazing, by the way, and happy. He nodded. That's good. I guess. I didn't know what I had back then. I smiled, a little sad, a little triumphant. No, you didn't. As he walked away, I felt something inside me shift. The final piece falling into place. He didn't leave me because I was boring. He left me because he couldn't recognize quiet strength. He mistook still water for emptiness. I wasn't empty. I was just getting started. And that night, on that stage, under soft lights and echoing applause, I told my story. Not the version he'd remember, but the version I wrote. And this time, everyone listened. The night after I saw Chase again, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was heartbroken. Those days were long gone. But because something inside me had finally settled. For the first time in years, I no longer had to wonder if I was enough. I had built something real, something mine, out of the ashes he left behind. And I wasn't going to stop. My book, Asterisk Stillness as a Sound Asterisk, slowly climbed the charts. It wasn't flashy or explosive, but people resonated with it. Readers said my words felt like they came from their own hearts. One woman wrote to me, saying my poem stopped her from giving up after her divorce. Another sent a picture of my book on her son's hospital bed, saying it helped them both during chemo. I started getting invitations, literary podcasts, TED-style talks, magazine features. I was still me, still introverted, still more comfortable with a pen than a microphone. But now, I stood tall. I wore my soft voice like armor, not shame. And then came the moment that would change everything. A producer from a major streaming platform reached out. They had read my book and wanted to develop a limited series based on it. They envisioned each episode focusing on a different poem, weaving stories of loss, healing, and quiet resilience. I said yes, not even caring about the money. I wanted the stories to live beyond the page. The process was long, exhausting, beautiful. I worked with screenwriters, consulted with directors, and even recorded narration in my own voice. When the show finally premiered, I didn't expect the reaction it received. People cried. They posted their own poems, tagged me, shared stories they'd hidden for years. I was called a voice for the quiet, the forgotten, the ones who didn't sparkle loud enough to be seen until now. And just like that, I became famous. Not overnight, not with fireworks, but in waves. Gentle, powerful, undeniable. There were red carpet events, book signings with lines around the block, interviewers asking about my life before all this. I always answered with honesty, but I never mentioned his name until one particular interview. The host asked, casually, "You wrote about a breakup that shattered you. Do you think that heartbreak was the beginning of your rise?" I paused, then smiled. I think it forced me to meet myself. And once I did, I found out I was never boring, just waiting to be heard. The clip went viral. My following tripled. And somewhere out in the world, Chase saw it. I know this because he reached out again. A message. Just one line. "I saw your interview. You're incredible." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't reply. Not because I hated him. I didn't. Not anymore. But because I had nothing left to say. A few months later, I was invited to return to my old university to speak at commencement. When I stood at that podium, in front of thousands of students with bright eyes and uncertain futures, I thought of the girl I once was, the one who waited in silence for someone to tell her she was enough. I spoke from the heart. I was called boring once, because I didn't want the loud parties or constant thrills. I wanted connection. I wanted something real. That label stuck with me for a long time, until I realized something. Stillness isn't emptiness. It's clarity. It's power. Don't let anyone tell you your way of existing is too small to matter. The crowd rose to their feet. My eyes filled with tears. After the ceremony, I walked through campus alone, past the old library, past the benches where I used to read. And I saw them. Chase and his fiancée. Yes, fiancée. She wore a ring, and she was glowing. She looked happy. He saw me too. We nodded politely, and for the first time, there was no bitterness. Just history. Just two people who once shared something, then took separate paths. Later, I learned through mutual friends that Chase had tried to start a travel vlog, but it fizzled out. He went from job to job. The world he once ran toward so loudly hadn't quite embraced him back. That wasn't karma. Not exactly. Life just is a way of showing us who we really are. As for me, I moved to a small house in Washington, nestled between woods and water. I still write, still walk in silence, still find joy in the rain tapping on the windows. But now, I also speak. I mentor young writers. I travel not to escape, but to connect. I do interviews. I host workshops. I even teach part-time at a university. And yes, sometimes people recognize me on the street. They smile. They thank me. Some call me famous. But fame was never the goal. Freedom was. And I have that now. Julia, my forever best friend, is still by my side. She's the one who pushed me onto that first stage, the one who dragged me out of the fog. We often joke that she should be getting a cut of everything. I tell her she gets paid in memories. One night, she brought over a bottle of wine and said, "Can you believe he called you boring?" I laughed, truly laughed. It was the best thing he ever did. Because if he hadn't said it, I might never have left that tiny apartment. I might never have stepped onto that stage. I might never have found my voice. He left me because I was too boring. But I became famous because I was true. And I'll never apologize for who I am again.